Hi, everyone. Oh, how is everybody doing? I'm coming to you from Pagosa Springs, Colorado, which is a lovely place at this time of year. Uh, if you don't know, my family has lived in an RV for a year. It's now broken, so we're figuring out our next steps. We think we're there. It will all come together very soon. But that's not what I'm talking about today. Today, I want to talk about the definition of recently postpartum and why it matters. So, this is something that came up in the Fix Your Hips group last week. Somebody asked a question and then they put a comment below it that was like, P.S. I had my baby 11 months ago, so I'm not recently postpartum. And that to me was like, oh, we need to talk about this. So let's talk about it. Okay, the definition of recently postpartum, there is none. There is none. And there are so many factors that go into the way that your body heals and recovers and comes back to some sense of normalcy after you have a baby. So let's throw away the idea of there being like a timeline. There is no timeline for your recovery. The fact that your doctor, your midwife, or whomever checks you at 6 weeks and says, okay, you're good, that doesn't mean anything. This is what I'm learning in the work that I'm doing. That means nothing. Yes, they've checked you. You're not falling out of yourself at that point, right? Like nothing is poking through your tissues. Like that's what they're checking for. They are not checking you at 6 weeks for how is stuff functioning? Are your muscles firing properly? Like none of that. So 6 weeks postpartum, you know, that it does not mean, I want everyone to like let go of the notion that you are only recently postpartum if you had a baby like between 0 and 3 months ago. No, not true. So let's talk about the things that do impact the way that your body responds and recovers. So first things first, and this is a huge one, breastfeeding. So I was an extended breastfeeder. Lots of the women that I work with breastfeed their babies for years. And that plays a huge role in the way your body recovers. Think about all the hormones that your body is releasing in order to keep up your milk supply, to let milk down. Like there's all of these hormonal chain reactions that are happening. Those hormones also are related to tissues being more thin. They are related to the body healing in a slower way. So if you are breastfeeding, you are going to be slower to recover, which again, I don't want it to be like, oh, you're slow or you're on time. No, I want you to think like, oh, I'm breastfeeding. So I am still in this like postpartum stage, right? And I told this story that so my oldest is almost 6. She'll be 6 in October, which is crazy. And then my youngest he's 3.5. He nursed until he was like 2.5. And it took probably like 4 to 5 months after that basically I was pregnant and nursing for a total of about 5 years. And about 6 months after I stopped nursing him was when I realized, oh, I feel pretty strong again. I was able to heal my core. I was able to do the things that I needed to do to bring my body back together. But then in terms of feeling like everything was staying stable, things weren't like popping out of joint and, like crazy stuff happens to your body after you have a baby. Like it wasn't like, oh, my hip just feels like it's really loosey-goosey. Like all of those things changed like 6 months after I stopped nursing because my hormones went back to postpartum hormone level. And so that is a huge factor. If you are nursing, you will probably have stuff going on with your body that feels different than when you were not before you got pregnant. And I want you to know that that's normal. And I want you to trust that those things will not continue forever. That once you stop nursing, then things will start to return. You'll feel stronger. You'll feel more stable. Yes, it's still important to make sure that you're healing everything in the way that you need to, but I don't want you to get like so focused on like, oh my gosh, this is the way it's going to be forever. No, those hormones are playing a big role. There's also a big role in genetics. So if you tend to be somebody who is really loosey-goosey in your joints, like I'm a very flexible person in my joints in general, so is my daughter. I know a lot of yoga people are. If that's you, then also it probably will take you longer to bring everything back together, and your postpartum period will be extended. It's just your natural disposition is towards laxity rather than stability. And so then you need to be more careful for longer and just give yourself more time. And then the other thing to just be aware of is reasonable expectation of time. If you think about having a young child, right, an infant, toddler, whatever, all the things that the lovely things that they do to us, like prevent us from sleeping, create stress in our lives, all of these things have a physical impact as well on us. So for whatever period you have in your life where you're not sleeping well, where you're feeling the stress of being a new parent or having a new baby, those are things that are also going to have physical impacts. So the definition of recently postpartum, again, there is none, but in my experience personally, and with working with tons and tons of moms, is that we need to stop thinking about postpartum as just like those first 6 months after you have a baby. It really needs to be often like the first year and a half, first 2 years, where we are treating ourselves kindly. We're not trying to push ourselves to extremes physically and with exercise, where we are also being mindful of the movements that we are doing with our body to make sure that we are still creating those conditions for the core to heal, the pelvic floor to heal, all of that. And usually then you get pregnant again, and so it all starts over. So for most of us, it's like we've got like 5 to 6, and then if you have more, it's like you may have a good 10 years where you're postpartum, recently postpartum, and that's okay. I think that's the thing. We live in this world where it is like, oh, I had a baby, and now I've got to be back to normal. Like 8 weeks later, I got to be back to normal, right? Because in the US, a lot of you are back at work at that point, which I won't even talk about that because don't get me started. But that is not the way we need to think about this. For our body, to honor our bodies, to honor ourselves as women, to honor this cycle of our lives, the cycle of mothering, pregnancy. This is a cycle that we are in, right? As mothers who are currently having babies. I'm done with that cycle. But we need to honor that, and we need to approach it as a period of time where we do things differently, right? Think of it like we're going through puberty. We're just doing it again later. It is like comparable to that and all the changes that happen to our body. So let's treat this period differently, and let's give it the time, the space, the grace that it requires, so that we can move through it without being hard on ourselves, without feeling like we're doing something wrong, without feeling like we have to question, like, why is my body like this? Your body is like this because you had a baby within the past few years, because you're breastfeeding, because you're not sleeping, you've got all this stuff going on. That's why. That is part of why. Yes, do all the things to make yourself as strong and as healthy and as good as you can be, but also trust the process, trust the cycle, trust the time, and trust your body to come out the other side again, because it totally will. I'm living proof. It will be there. Okay, that's all I've got for you today. I'm going to throw a link in the comments, though, because I have a blog post that if you are recently postpartum and you want to get back into fitness, this is an article that just talks through really simple, easy, safe ways to do that. So I'll put that in the comments for anybody who's interested. All right, guys, have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you all next week. Bye.